Welcome to today's podcast interview. I've brought on Byron Athene. Byron, welcome.
Well, thank you. It's really nice to be here, Heather. It's nice to virtually meet you.
Yes, please give listeners a little background. Where do you live and what do you do?
Okay, well, I live in the UK, a place called Croydon in Surrey. Well, kind of London, Surrey. I'm a counseling psychotherapist, clinical supervisor, certified mindset coach, hypnotherapist, trainer, writer. I think that's about it for now.
Something we touched on in the pre-call was the idea that mindset is everything. And obviously, as a mindset coach, I focus on the internal, the dialogue, our thoughts and emotions and our habits and how they're creating reality. But I would love to hear from you. How do you define mindset?
In the same way, my mindset is everything, and one of the things I enjoy sharing with people is just how impactful our mindsets are, because it's sometimes quite eye-opening to see how people are so entrenched in their current way of thinking. There's something called psychological flexibility, and a lot of people don't have that, especially in terms of their mindset. So they think that their mindset is quite kind of concrete in some ways, and if they only knew the truth, then
Yeah.
they would be sort of set free, I suppose, in a lot of important ways.
Well, and something you shared with me is the idea of maximizing our potential. So before we go there, can you please explain what we just barely touched on, the idea of a fixed mindset, which I think it comes down to choice, versus a growth mindset? What's the difference so people can understand, oh, maybe that's where I'm currently
Yeah.
hanging out.
Yeah. Okay. Someone called Cal Dweck, I think, in the 80s did a study on school children in America. I think she got a couple of classes, or one class maybe, split the class into two groups, and told the two groups different things. She told one group that they were good at learning, they were good at taking exams. She told the other group that they tried hard, they didn't give up as easily. Then she gave them a series of exams, I think, and at first group A excelled and they did well, but as the exams got harder, the second group excelled because they didn't give up. The first group gave up because they were told they were good at something, they got a bad grade or a bad mark, and that proved to them that it wasn't true, and then maybe that disheartened them, and so that increased the chances of them not trying. So okay, so a fixed mindset generally is the idea that we are either good or bad at something. So someone with a fixed mindset would, rather than embracing a challenge, embracing an obstacle, they'd rather find the easier way out, or like stop at the first hurdle. Maybe someone with a fixed mindset might be envious of someone else's success. They think that their abilities, their abilities determine the outcomes, whereas growth mindset is just like the opposite of those. Like someone with a growth mindset knows that you can be good or bad, or you can be good at something if you just practice, if you stick at it, if you persevere. Someone with a growth mindset isn't envious at someone else's success. They can be inspired by someone else's success. Someone with a growth mindset will embrace obstacles, embrace challenge. Someone with a growth mindset knows that they can't really fail, they can just learn, I guess. And someone with a growth mindset knows that the effort they make defines them, as opposed to their perceived abilities.
I love what you just touched on there because I literally wrote that down before you were saying it. But what came to mind for me to boil it down is it's maybe somebody who avoids failure versus somebody who goes
Exactly.
towards it.
Exactly. Yeah.
Where I consistently, constantly train myself, generally through physical feats. That's how I'm training my mindset, creating confidence, belief, perseverance, resilience. But I
Mm.
believe everybody has the capacity to have a growth mindset. Would you agree?
Oh, definitely, definitely. In
Okay.
fact, I'd go as far as saying, this might be controversial. I'd go as far as saying we are all born with a growth mindset, but
Ah,
we do certain things. Someone with a fixed mindset then intervenes and says, "Oh, you're not good at this," and then we internalize it, we interject it, and then we believe that we're not good at it. or vice versa. We do something and someone says, "Oh, you're good at that." So then we think, "Oh, well, I'm good at that," as opposed to, "Well, I'm good at it because of the effort I put into it." And so I think we're all born with growth mindsets, but then because of our experiences, a fixed or growth mindset is consolidated, reinforced, and then consolidated.
I would agree. And a lot of it is based on environment, what we grow up around. And we either mimic what we learned or we do a 180 because of maybe pain or whatever.
Yeah,
Something that came to mind, do you ever talk much about a paradigm shift?
paradigm shift. No, not really. Not often.
Do you, well, I'll just define from what I understand it to be. So, as an example,
Okay.
Bob Proctor always talked about needing to shift your paradigm to change your reality. And your paradigm
Okay.
is simply your worldview, your perception,
Okay.
your lens.
Okay.
Another way of saying this. And
Yeah.
what that really gets down to is understanding the subconscious mind. Do you do much work with that?
Oh God, definitely. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, paradigm shift.
Okay.
That's probably not how I'd phrase it, but hearing the way you said it, then yes, definitely. I mean,
Yeah.
the subconscious, a large chunk of the work I do is helping someone understand their subconscious processes,
Yeah.
and I'm in a good position to do that because a lot of people, a lot of issues that my clients bring aren't more to do with the events that they're in; they're more to do with their subconscious processes.
Okay. Let's talk about that at a high level. What is the subconscious mind? Because I know it as, 5% our conscious mind, our wishes, our desires, our dreams, our goals going against 95% of the programming. Or as Bruce Lipton says, anywhere you're struggling or efforting, you have a conscious desire going against 95% of your programming, or
Mm.
your life is a printout of the subconscious. So anywhere that's going well, you also have a program to go in line with that. So can you explain what is our subconscious mind? How do we become aware and how do we change the programs?
Wow. Okay. So that's a big question. So, and I guess there's lots of different ways I could try to describe the subconscious mind. So let's say the brain's often described as a computer. So one way you could describe the subconscious is the conscious is the programmer, and the subconscious becomes the programs. Not even becomes, because there's a base program that's there. So the subconscious could be described as the unconscious processes that we run, and that govern our experience. But because the conscious is the programmer, we can intervene. We can kind of imagine if we were able to like see I guess the equivalent would be like looking at a HTML web page and seeing the code. So that's our subconscious, the web page. But we can go in and change the code, so then our subconscious will be updated, and then the web page will look different and act differently. So yeah. So in terms of how we amend the subconscious, I guess we have to uh, in some way try to be conscious of it, and then we can condition. Imagine the subconscious. Another way of saying it, it's a group of conditioned responses. So we can be aware of the conditioned responses, so we can condition a different response. Well, awareness is how it starts, I think.
100%. I couldn't agree more. On that note, I love the analogy. And think about, I have an iPhone, and yesterday it updated to 17 point something. So, as an example, going along with that, I like to think of our iPhones. How often our phones are getting updated for quote viruses or bugs or wanting to bring it to the latest programming, where it's
Yeah.
like, when was the last time people sat and did self-introspection and awareness and vision mapping and creating their future? So can we touch on that? Because something else you shared is the idea of achieving inner peace, which we all can, and there is so much struggle and suffering, but it doesn't
Definitely.
have to be. So
Nope.
let's talk about introspection, understanding self, so that you can create a reality you choose.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I think we have to know, well, that journey is easier if we know that we can create a reality. Because lots of people think that a lot of people don't realize that they are creating their reality. They think that their reality is just I don't know, like a concrete thing that they're experiencing, as opposed to a malleable thing that they're creating. So that's the first step. That's the first step.
So on that, a victim would think, or a fixed mindset would think, life is happening to me.
Exactly.
I have no control. Life is happening to me. Where a growth mindset truly knows I can change my outcomes.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. Yeah. One of the things I've started to focus more with my clients, because it just keeps on coming up. Like someone will say something that will make it clear that their thoughts are getting in their own way, and I remind them that our thoughts are not reality. The thoughts only have the power that we give to them.
Yeah.
So I use an example of one thought. The same thought could be experienced by three different people, and those three different people could have three completely different outcomes. The thought could be something like, I'm going to do badly. I'm going to do badly. So if person A thinks I'm going to do badly, person A buys into it. They make it a self-fulfilling prophecy. They then set up a negative confirmation bias. They seek out other times where they did badly, and now person A has now increased the chances of not doing as well as they wanted to do because of how they interacted with the thought. Now person B had the same thought, but they challenge it. They question it and think, oh, actually, well, no, I don't know I'm going to do badly. I could do well. So that person sets up maybe a neutral confirmation bias, and then they just see what happens. So it's 50-50 whether they do badly or not. But person C has the same thought, oh, I'm going to do badly, and they think, well, actually, well, no, they challenge it in a defiant way, and they think, well, actually, no, I'm going to put the effort in. I'm going to do what I need to do to ensure that I do much better than I was going to do. So that person creates a positive confirmation bias. They seek out times where they've done this in the past and it's worked out, or times done it in the past and it hasn't worked out, but they've coped. So that person has now increased the chances of them doing better than they were going to do before they had the thought.
So on that note, I love how you said to get out of your own way, because that's kind of a headline I use often, and only because been there, done that. And I'm still on my own journey, but I think so self-aware and have all these tools so I don't fall into those funks and stay there, marinate them.
Yeah.
Let's talk about how thoughts become things, quote, manifesting, but we're all manifesting every single day. So how do we become more aware of changing those thoughts, catching and replacing?
Yeah. Oh, well, that's it. It's a case of catching them. A lot of the time, our thoughts are subconscious. We don't question them. We take them as if we're just reading from a book, as opposed to we're creating every single moment. So if we were aware we are creating every single moment, the things that we are potentially creating would be, I don't know, I guess maybe not challenged, but we'd be more mindful of what we are creating.
Yes, I love that term as well, mindful. Okay, so now I want to deep dive and talk about the next domino. Something I talk about often, because I want to make this very digestible and easy, is what I call the thought cycle. 4 steps. So our thoughts create our emotions and feelings, which lead to the actions we take and create our results. So to reverse engineer, to become aware of, okay, I'm not happy in my finances, mental health, relationships. Reverse engineer actions, emotions, thoughts. Can we deep dive the emotion piece so we can help people that are sitting in funk, sadness, depression, woe is me, to help them get out of the weeds?
Oh, definitely. Is this a good time to talk about the okay, here we go. So, right. I believe I have found the real reason, or a more sensible reason, for why we have negative emotions. And by negative emotions, I mean the emotions that most people would agree aren't enjoyable, like embarrassment or anxiety, depression, anger, hurt, those emotions that most people agree aren't enjoyable. So there was a point in my life where I thought, well, they are just part of life. They're unavoidable, inescapable. But I believe I discovered the real reason. So right. So let's imagine that there are 10 sensible sounding reasons that try to explain why bad emotions exist. If you hear one of these 10, you might not believe it, but you might think it's feasible. If you hear anything outside of these 10, you would just know that they're obviously not true, because they just sound absurd or too far-fetched or whatever. So so we're I don't want to take up too much of your time. So I'm not gonna show you how all 10 are untrue or less sensible than one that I think is more sensible. So I'll present the top three, the three I've heard by far the most. I'll say what the theory is. I'll give you the opportunity to say whether you believe it or not, say true or false. If you don't believe it, that's good. We can just move on to the next one. If you do believe it, I'll show you how it can be shown that it's probably not true from more kind of objective perspectives. It's probably not true, even though it sounds sensible. So then after we've disproved the top three in somewhat detail, I'll quickly go over three more that you may have heard, just so we're not leaving them out. I'll then describe the one that I think is a lot more truthful. And I'm not dogmatic. I'm not closed-minded. I'm not saying I definitely know this is true 100%. I'm saying out of all the things I've heard, this one makes by far the most sense, and it's by far the most inclusive and comprehensive. So then we'll see where we are.
Okay, so I'm the guinea pig. You're putting me
You're
on
the
the
guinea
spot.
pig. You're the guinea
Okay.
pig. So this is how I take my clients through it. So
Let's go.
if you're okay, right. So theory number one is the contrast theory. So lots of people believe that bad emotions exist only because without them, the good emotions wouldn't feel as good. So it's the contrast between a good and a bad. Shall we just skip that? Yeah, that's just obviously not true. So shall we just skip ahead?
I'm gonna big false.
Definitely, but it's amazing how many people believe that. It's amazing that people think that no, the bad has to be there because we need a reference point. We need a frame of reference, and we if we want to compare, then sure, but we don't need a reference point to experience. We could just experience okay, good. So the second theory is the utility or usefulness or function theory, and that is our bad emotions exist only because in certain situations they serve us better than our good emotions. So for example, guilt has okay, good. That's another one. Actually, this one, I think this one is, oh sorry, you're gonna say something.
No, I would just say again false, because again that's thinking. This almost makes me think of the glass half full or half empty. And I love how somebody said the glass is, you missing the whole point. The glass is refillable.
Well, that's good.
Yeah. Okay, but go on.
My whole thing with the whole glass thing, rather than considering it half full or half empty, I'm just grateful that the glass is there in the first place. So
yeah.
So I think that theory is true, but only for one emotion in one specific circumstance. So I think it's true for fear in the specific circumstance of your life being in danger. Because if your life's in danger and you're feeling frightened, then your fear is going to help you more than any good emotion might, because your fear is going to prompt adrenaline, and you can use that adrenaline to run faster or fight harder. But every other emotion is not true, and it's not true for fear in any other situation. If you're in any other situation and you're fearful, that fear might, because you're not thinking clearly, you might be putting yourself in danger as opposed to getting yourself out of it. So good. Okay, so the last theory is the inevitability theory, as in bad emotions are inevitable. They're unavoidable, inescapable, which means if you encounter a bad experience and you don't feel bad, you are either lying to yourself or you're suppressing the bad emotion. What do you think? True or false?
So I have a question on that one. Are you familiar with the Hermetic principles?
That sounds familiar, but
so the 7 Hermetic principles, one of them talks about polarity, which is more or less what you're talking about, like a spectrum of emotions, right? And so what this principle talks about is that nature, as an example, seeks harmony, seeks balance. And that however far the pendulum, so we're talking about pendulum swings now, however far the pendulum swings to the right, so joy, gratitude, happiness, amazing, because of balance, it'll swing as far to the left, so go to those quote negative emotions. But we have the power to transmute and stay in this very, very balanced. So not that we're numb and not feeling the emotions. I think they have a purpose.
Yeah.
So I'm unsure.
Okay. Well, I think this theory can be disproved just by taking it into.
Yeah.
I think taking into account that it's not about something being bad and us being forced to feel bad in response to it. It's more about the person. It's more about how the person interprets the thing.
Yes,
So
I would
yeah,
agree.
that's that. Yeah, that's how I'd show that that theory is easily disprovable. And
Okay.
but even if the theory was true, it's not helpful because it doesn't say why bad emotions are inevitable. I might as well have said to you, bad emotions are unavoidable because. So,
Yeah.
so even if it's true, it's unhelpful. But I think my theory explains why. So if I remember, I'll swing back around to theory three after we've briefly discussed the main theory, the one I'm here to mainly talk about, and I'll fill in the blank. So bad emotions seem inevitable because blah blah blah. Okay, so I'll quickly go over three more theories that I've heard kind of bandied around. So okay, so there's a psychopath argument. People say you need to feel bad because if you don't, you're a psychopath. But that's a misinterpretation of what a psychopath is because that implies psychopaths don't feel bad about anything, and of course they do. They just don't feel bad about things that society say they should feel bad about, like other people's feelings and
Yeah.
emotions and stuff. So yeah, there's the empathy argument. People say we need to have bad emotions because without them we couldn't have empathy for other people. Again, that's a misinterpretation. The person who says that is seemingly mistaken empathy with sympathy. Sympathy means feeling bad, sad, or sorry for someone. Empathy means understanding how someone feels. So if you want to be sympathetic, you need to feel bad because that's what the word means, but you don't need to feel bad to understand that someone else might be feeling bad. I think what often happens is that we're empathetic and sympathetic at the same time. So we've merged the two words when they are two distinctly different things.
Agreed.
Okay. So the last one is the robot argument. People say you need to have bad emotions because without them we just be robots. Well, I think the way we're using our emotions now is robotic because we're usually not thinking about how to respond. We often just snap to a response like it's a default program, like we program like robots. I'm saying we should consider how to respond because that would make us less robotic, not more.
Okay, on that note, is that talking about like being reactive versus proactive?
Pretty
Like,
much. Pretty
okay, so
much.
power of the pause.
Yes, exactly.
Okay. Okay.
Okay.
I'm picking up what you're putting down.
Good. I'm going to put down more stuff.
Okay.
Okay, so yeah, so those are the six main theories that I've had to kind of sort of I don't know back pretty much. Okay, so the truth. Are you ready?
Yes.
You look ready. You do. Okay. So before I share the truth, because I used to, like I said, I used to just blurt it out, but I found a more fun way of sharing it. So rather than me tell you what the theory is, instead, I'm going to ask you two questions, two simple questions. And in answering those two questions, you are going to be unknowingly telling me what the theory is. All I'm going to do is just add in more detail. So, question number one, why do babies cry usually, generally?
Fed or I mean, them crying is a signal that they need something, attention.
Perfect.
Okay.
Perfect. Yeah, perfect. Yeah, that's so. But a baby cries usually, generally, because there's something they need or want, and there's no other form of communication.
Okay.
Okay. Question number two, what is a typical response to the baby crying from the caregiver or someone close to them?
Well, you pick them up and you nurture, soothe. You want to soothe them.
Yeah. Yeah. Typically, you tend to them. You try to find out what they're communicating, and you try to give it to them if it's practical, or if you can. Okay, so here we go. Theory number four, I call the baby theory, and it makes clear that the only reason why adults still feel bad is that we needed to feel bad as babies to alert someone that there was something wrong in our environment because there was no other way of us doing it, and it's a process we are unknowingly, unconsciously still running. So let's imagine that ideally a baby is in a state of equilibrium or balance. They have everything they need. They've got the right amount of food in them, temperatures within the right range. That feels good. All of the needs are being met. That feels good. Now, when there's even one unmet need, so there's a problem with the food, there's a problem with the temperature, that doesn't feel good, that triggers a state of disequilibrium or imbalance. Because a baby can't say, "Oi, I'm hungry. Can you turn the heating up or down, please?" The only thing the baby can do is crudely express the fact that there's something wrong by
Yeah.
crying in the hope that someone comes along, tends to them, identify the need that's not being met, meet it, and that returns the baby to a state of equilibrium again. So a baby uses that process to ensure that their needs are met as quickly as possible, and it works more times than not. There's a very high success rate. Now, when desires are introduced to the baby, so this is the near newborn baby now, when desires are introduced and the baby sees an obstacle to that desire, they know bad feelings gets results, so they make themselves feel bad, express the bad feeling in
Oh
the
my
hope that someone
gosh.
comes along and tends to them. And that's a process that's running continuously. And we were never taught that that's what we were doing. So instead of being taught that that's what we were doing, so we can condition a healthier response, we're taught these fake reasons for the existence of bad emotions, like we need bad to know good, or bad emotions are serving us better than good emotions, or bad emotions are just a part of life. But that's the reason why, I think. What do you think?
So what I hear from you, what I wrote down is this is a deep-rooted, conditioned response to more or less throw tantrums to get attention, to get our way, to get our needs met.
Yeah, well, needs met first. That's the more kind of autonomic response. But then when we're a bit older, we use it to get our desires met. So,
Okay. But realistically, so it is. It's like all of these adults are walking around with an elementary level emotional response, and that's what's creating so much chaos in our lives.
sorry to break it to you kids, but yeah, that's the
Wow, that
that's
you
the
know what, and that
crux.
makes sense. And until we, and
Okay.
I'm getting chills, until we become aware in the self introspection and learn how to self regulate our thoughts, our
Yeah,
emotions,
yeah,
then being proactive, that's how we create coherence, harmony, bliss, peace in our lives.
yeah.
It's an inside job.
Yeah. Oh God, definitely, definitely. And like I said before,
Ah,
before we started to record, when I found this, and I don't know, I started to work on my good emotions even more. My good emotions mushroomed to the point where I couldn't even describe to you how good I felt, because it seems like our bad emotions are holding our good ones back. And that kind of
yes.
makes sense, because
Huh.
imagine if this theory is true, we are still experiencing somewhat a baby range of emotions. I'm saying, or as adults, I think it's been said that there are lots of neurotransmitters that are kind of unused. Maybe that's what they are. They're like kind of more the good feeling drugs that we'd be feeling if we weren't stuck in this kind of
Oh
um
my gosh.
yeah,
This
yeah,
is bringing it all full circle, and think about, we all have numbing agents. We all have vices because we're seeking to feel good. And if we just
exactly.
understood, it's never out there. It's not in a substance, shopping, food, sex, drugs, alcohol. It'll never be that. When
Yeah,
you change the quote programming, the emotions that you generally experience, that's what's going to change your reality.
definitely,
Holy
definitely.
shit. Thank you for the
Yeah.
full circle. Okay, so let's paint a picture of
Okay.
what's possible for individuals who are like, wow, light bulbs going off, aha moments.
Yeah.
I've got to become aware. I have to self-regulate.
Yeah.
And don't think of this as a job or a chore. It's like this is how you free
Oh
yourself.
God. Yeah. This is an awakening. It really, for me, it was an awakening. For my clients, this what's hilarious sometimes is seeing the different responses my clients have when I share it with them. Like it's definitely one of the better parts of my job.
Okay, so let's paint a picture, and maybe you can even share some of your daily rituals and practices that are helping you stay on this
Yep.
path and
Okay.
teaching
Sure.
clients.
Yeah.
Let's talk about your daily practices and rituals, and then what's possible for individuals when they start doing this work.
Yeah, well, I don't have to practice it anymore, because this is the truth. That's me practicing is like me looking at the sun almost, or knowing the sun's there. I know the sun's there. I don't have to remind myself. So it's this is just my life now. But starting clients off, I then try to make clear. Let's say I've got a client who's like 40 years old, say. So they accept it. So some people don't, but this client has accepted it, and they say, "Well, what now?" Okay, well, what now? First of all, try to disprove it. try to disprove it, because try to find exceptions. I bet you can't. No one's disproved this. No one's come close to disproving this in the 30 years I've been sharing it. People have made clear that they don't want to believe it for whatever reason. But yeah, I think I'm a logical, scientifically minded person. If someone, like I said, I'm not dogmatic. I'm not dogmatic about this. If someone said something that was more sensible than this, I'd happily latch on to the sense that they're introducing me to. I'm believing in this not because it's mine, because I discovered it. I'm believing in this because I think it makes the most sense. So I encourage my clients to, first of all, try and disprove it, because the more you try to disprove it and the more you can't, the quicker you'll accept it. So then once they've kind of signed on to the process, I say, right, okay, I make it clear. Even if they 100% understand the theory, even if they 100% agree with the theory, even if they 100% want to stop feeling bad or want to understand their emotions better, they've still got 40 years of entrenched condition responses to compete against, and they're not going to win that fight. So the best thing to do is just to understand the condition response as quickly as possible, because then we can condition a more healthier and helpful response.
Yeah. You know what I say, just to give, I'm very visual. So when we're talking about neuroscience and Hebb's law, nerve cells that fire together, wire together, what you're saying is if you have 40 years of being one way, of being consumed in frustration, impatience, annoyance, guilt, shame, that's 40 years of programming and conditioning. I call those, think of them as weeds in your mental garden.
Okay.
Can you diffuse them overnight? No, but it
No,
is possible that you can pull the weeds, plant new seeds, and create this
exactly.
inner harmony and balance by doing okay. So talk about how they, become aware and they're buying into it. Now, what's the process to start? What are your terms to quote reprogram?
Okay. Yeah. Well, recondition, I guess,
Recondition.
reprogram, even. Yeah. So okay. So the process usually starts with me going through the first two stages of emotional development as I see them. The stage one, that's the newborn baby. This is the baby theory at its most pure form. A newborn baby only has bad sensations and good sensations. Good sensations when all their needs are being met, bad sensations when their needs aren't being met. And so this is the real reason for the baby theory, to ensure survival. Because if there's a need not being met and it continues to be unmet, they could die. So they need some sort of distress signal, and that's what our bad feelings are. We have a bad feeling or a bad sensation, we express it in the hope that someone comes along, tends to us, and makes the changes needed for us to be comfortable again. So that's stage one. So stage two is where the magic happens. So stage two is where the process is adapted a little bit, because we use the same process to meet our needs, to meet desires, but there's a massive difference between a need not being met and a desire not being met. When there's a need not being met, there's a naturally occurring bad sensation. A baby doesn't have to do anything to feel cold except be in a cold room. Their senses will detect they're in a cold room. So they don't have to, there is no additional process to the bad sensation kind of creation. They in that case, their senses are mirrors, pretty much. But when there's a desire not being met, because there isn't a naturally occurring bad sensation, we have to create one. And that's the birth of bad emotion. So in stage two, we pretty much pretend to be hungry, or we pretend to be hot and cold, but we have to pretend in such a convincing way that even we're fooled by it. So the first of four illusions are created. So I talk them through the four different illusions, and I then introduce different analogies to try to ensure that we notice the illusions and no longer fall for them as automatically as we have done our whole lives.
Okay, can you please give a specific example of a desire not being met? So maybe somebody wanting to be financially free, or a loving relationship, or physically healthy. Just give one real world example.
Anything, like someone losing a job. The desire is to keep the job. They've been fired. Yeah. So that's a desire not being met.
So what would they do in that scenario? So we're having outcomes or experiences we don't desire.
Yeah.
How do we create an outcome or result we do desire?
Okay. Well, I'm not sure you can do that just by noticing your bad emotion. I suppose the point I would try to make at that stage, they're feeling bad because they got fired, because they're reverting to their original problem solving mechanic of feeling bad because there's something happening that they don't like. Because when they felt bad in the past, someone came along um, and gave them the thing they're feeling bad about. So I'd make it clear that them feeling bad is them still using that obsolete program. So their
Okay.
bad feeling isn't going to get them their job back, but they can use that bad feeling to to just be mindful of the process and
Yeah.
say, okay, well, is there anything I can do to either get my job back or to get another job?
Yeah. Okay. So what I'm hearing from you, or my perception of this, that baby theory, why it's not serving us as adults is because nobody's coming to save us.
Exactly.
Those
Exactly.
emotions, think of them as a check engine light. It's now our opportunity to go, oh, I'm feeling bad. I'm feeling fearful. I'm feeling worried. Use that as an opportunity to go, okay, wait a minute. Where do I want to direct my thoughts and emotions
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
better serve?
Precisely. And I can even add to that. I can add to that in terms of not only is no one going to come to your rescue when you feel bad, just because you're feeling bad, the fact that you're feeling bad, you are disabling yourself. So you're making it even harder for you to solve the problem. So there's no good really. I mean, the better thing to do would be to feel neutral, because then if you felt neutrally, then if there was an option that you could better or you could exercise to make the most out of the situation, you'd be more likely to do it. But if you're feeling bad, you're quite kind of you're too almost invested in the bad emotion. You don't see anything else. It's just shit. It's just bad. And yeah, so that's really not helping you.
I love this conversation because I feel like it's literally a golden key to help free people creating that inner peace. I'd
It
love
really
to
is.
share. I love if you would share quickly at a high level, since you've been doing this work for so long, you've embodied this change. You
Yeah.
are choosing and you're so aware on the positive emotions and outcomes you want. Can you just paint a picture of what's possible?
It's oh god, what's possible? Well, the universe is the limit. Most people are looking at life through the lens of their bad emotions. So
Mm,
if they change their view completely about what the bad emotion is, why it's there, their view of life could be significantly impacted in a major way. In a major way. I can't, like I said, I can't explain enough. It's I guess it needs to be experienced almost, but yeah, like paradigm shift. It's like it's
yeah.
yeah, completely different. Life could be completely different.
It's literally night or day. You can go from poverty to financial abundance. You can go from
Exactly.
misery to happiness. You can go from
Exactly.
shit relationships to loving, amazing. I mean, everything would change in your life when you change.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely.
Woo! Okay, I love that. Um, Something I asked you, I'm going back to my notes. Okay. I want to just a quick touch on this a little bit because it is so
Sure.
important. Our narratives, our stories, what we keep
Oh God.
repeating, thinking, and
God.
saying. But I asked you if you could give humanity a billboard message,
Yeah.
what would you say? Do you remember?
I think so.
Okay.
Maybe not word for word, but I can
That's,
remember
yeah.
the sort of the gist.
Yes. Please share that.
Okay. Or is that our reality stems from our stories, and we can tell ourselves any story we want. Therefore, we can create any reality we want.
Boom. I think that alone, if people really understood and embodied that, that can shift their reality.
Oh God, definitely.
We touched on a lot today, and this is, I mean, I'm excited to hear this again and edit it. I'm serious, and take more mental notes. If you could provide just one key takeaway, what do you want listeners to know?
One key takeaway. Um, yeah, again, I went back to that architect place as well. So one key takeaway is, well, I suppose I'll kind of repeat what I said just then. If we stop looking at life through the lens of our bad emotions, our view of life would be completely different.
Yes. Okay. Love that. I'd love to have you ask you a few rapid fire questions to wrap up the interview.
Sure.
First
Shoot.
one, what is a quote or motto that you live by?
Quote or motto that I live by. Again, it's like there's too many kind of quotes swimming around my head. Okay, the mind in itself is its own place and can make a heaven of hell and a hell of heaven.
Oh, that's a good one. Love that. What is a book you're currently reading or highly recommend?
Look, I can't be reading. Oh my god, what am I reading now? I was recently reading a book by Alan Parry, who I spoke to you before, before the um, before this before we started recording. Yeah, he's a counselor, a trainer, and he's an expert on something called memory reconsolidation. Memory reconsolidation, I think, is the best trauma treatment, and so I'm rereading that because I do use that in my work quite often.
All right. Final question. What advice would you give your younger self?
Oh, okay, that's a tricky one. How much time do we have?
What advice?
Okay. Oh, see, I wouldn't give my younger self any advice. I wouldn't intervene in my past, because if the past was different in any way, then the now wouldn't exist. So I wouldn't.
Okay, on that note, I'm going to do something different then.
Okay.
Could you give maybe an idea of to trust your journey to because for somebody, as an example, what we've talked about today,
Yeah.
somebody who's in a funk may not realize and understand that that funk is what is going to change their trajectory. They
Mm,
needed that experience to help them grow and evolve.
mm.
So, like, you're exactly where you're meant to be. Your life is unfolding,
Yeah.
but
Okay.
I
Okay.
hear
Well,
you.
how about something like um change your view on what good or bad events are, because usually we think a good event is when something kind of goes our way, a bad event is when something doesn't go our way, but a good event is the thing that happened, because the thing that happened is one of the many things that had to happen for us to be alive in that moment.
Yeah. I love that. And such a great note to end on. Byron, I loved this conversation. Thank you so much
Oh,
for
thank
joining
you.
me.
Oh, you're welcome. It was great.